I'm just a little bit confused about that. You know, it's always funny when someone says like, "Oh, they slag someone off," and they're like, "Oh, yeah, that's horrible." And then there's a response to it that they might not have expected.
Oh,
And then they're like, "Oh, actually, no, I didn't mean that."
yeah, I don't know. I reckon this one's like a sorry bracket, not sorry.
You reckon?
Like, you know, one of those apologies where it's like, I'm sorry that hurt your feelings.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry that you feel that way.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
Not sorry I said it, just sorry that
It's
you
not,
were
yeah.
offended by that.
That's a good point. I deeply apologise for any upset I might have caused you. It's affected, you know, I feel terrible, whatever. Ellen van Dijk in this case is just like, ooh, Denmark's a bit upset with me. But Soz...
I don't know. I still reckon Ellen had a valid point. Although,
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, you've already started.
Recording.
Oh, fantastic. Kate Bates going deep early on the Wheelhouse podcast, coming to you from the bunker in a mysterious location, which we sometimes reveal, sometimes not. You've got to be a regular viewer or listener of the show to know where the bunker is. I'm not going to reveal it today. It's good to be back.
It is good to be back. It's still very summery here, even though I'm desperate for winter to come. Although I must say, classic season has kind of immersed us in the nasty temperature a little bit. And the sleep deprivation.
You know I'm a newcomer to the sport, and I'm looking at the classics this year and some of the horrendous conditions. Is it always the way? Is this year is it a particularly damaging weather year? Or?
No. It's pretty normal. I mean,
Is it?
Yeah. Even when we get to the Giro, every year typically 1, 2, if not more stages are affected by snow. Oof. So, you know, it's still pretty early in the season. But there's a debate that rages around Paris-Roubaix and whether people should hope for a wet Paris-Roubaix or a dry one, because fans are like, oh, we love it when it's all wet out there.
Yeah.
It's not the same when it's dry.
I love that. It's like, we love it when everyone's suffering.
Yeah, but it's really dangerous when it's wet. So, wow.
It's the old gladiatorial thing. Get in there and bash each other up. That's entertainment for you.
It is entertainment, though.
Speaking of entertainment, just for you, Wheelhouse Podcast. My name's Joel Spreadborough, here with Olympian, world champion, and just a great lady, Kate Bates. It's good to be back. Now, we're going to talk about Paris-Roubaix, drama on both sides there. A little bit of controversy around riders' salaries. I've got a little bit to say and a few questions to ask about this because it's a real puzzler. A race named after beer, what can possibly go wrong? And we'll check in we'll talk about one of our favourite Aussies who's having a bit of a year but says, you know, watch this space, Watch this space. Before anything else, let's go Paris-Roubaix. Kate Bates. Now, your notes, I love this because we love a bit of a fourth wall reveal on the Wheelhouse and a peek behind the curtain. Your note on this that you sent me the other day basically said a different kind of race.
Yes.
Now, are you talking about weather? Are you talking about the coverage of the race? You're talking about the result? You're talking about a bit of everything, aren't you?
It is a bit of everything. Let's just kick off with my bugbear so that we can get it out of the way.
The Bates bugbear.
The coverage didn't start until 80k to go of 145 kilometres. Crappy, not good enough.
Yeah, that's odd.
So we missed the break going, essentially, which was a little bit of a annoyance.
Yeah.
Because the biggest thing at Paris-Roubaix is the early break. And that's where Ali Jackson, our winner, that's where she made her move, in the early break.
So you're tuning in. Ali's already doing her thing. You don't really know how she got there. You don't know what she's done to put herself in that position at all because the TV has not allowed you to do so.
That's correct.
That's very odd.
But I must say that all of my annoyance was washed away when she won and celebrated in a way that we are not accustomed to seeing in cycling.
So you were so kind then. You said not accustomed. I was so not capable of doing because I'm not capable of dancing as well as she is. Extraordinary. And you know what? She's got some form. Ali Mitchell, she's a TikTok enthusiast. She's a veteran at TikTok.
Yes.
Has pushed out some dances on there. They're all pretty good.
Well, on all her social media, she's Ali Action Jackson.
I love that.
So she's like action woman. She grew up on a bison farm.
She grew up on a bison farm?
Yeah, in rural Alberta, Canada. And one of her hobbies growing up was to collect rocks in the backyard. One of her hobbies now is to be a TikTok dancer. So she makes these fantastic videos. And we've got, if you haven't seen it on our socials, because we've put it up there, it was so entertaining. We've got it on here in the studio. Joel's giving it a go.
I can't. It's like a twerk mixed with like some sort of weird knee.
There's a couple of remarkable elements to it. Firstly,
can you demonstrate?
I
or-
cannot.
No?
I
Okay.
mean, I don't know. Like,
Here we go.
a little-
Oh, that's better than mine. Why did you? Yeah, that's way better than mine. Straight
oh God,
away.
I hope the camera wasn't on me for that one. How did she even have the energy to compose a dance?
That was my first
after
question
that.
for
I mean,
you.
I think that's pure adrenaline.
You've been
right
closer
there.
to this level of energy exertion. Do you have that kind of energy
Well,
to dance like that?
No.
Does euphoria
It does.
overcome fatigue?
Euphoria does overcome fatigue.
Yeah.
Yes, good question. And we are so used to seeing winners collapse on the ground and hug and cry. It's very often after these massive races.
Yeah.
Is that they're overcome with emotion at the end.
Yeah.
And it's got a beautiful thing. But I don't know, for me, I never cried when I won. I was a bit more, like, I'm not the TikTok generation, so I didn't necessarily dance, but I was like a hell yeah, woo kind of winner in an Ali Jackson way, not a crying, hugging everybody.
So you were more, I guess, there's euphoria, then there's passion, then there's emotion. You were sort of more the passion, sort of the fist rose.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, yeah. And,
yeah.
and you know what? If I was racing now,
Yep.
I reckon I'd bang a dance out.
Well, you are racing now because the other week you raced in the Tour de Brisbane family ride.
I did well
and,
race,
oof,
yes. No,
geez.
but I love it. I love it. And
Yeah.
what I love, though, is that people may not have even known Ali before.
Yeah.
But a lot of people know her as the TikTok dancer.
I love that.
Pro cyclist,
Yeah.
but TikTok dancer. But it was interesting because she went in the early break and, you know, she was kind of a you got to be in it to win it attitude. And she's always targeted this race. She's always said that it would be beautiful. Like I said, she grew up on a farm. She used to collect rocks as a kid.
Yeah.
And now she's collected kind of the ultimate rock, hasn't she?
I get it. Like that she, of all the tipping and all the pre-race favourites you mentioned, she definitely wasn't in there.
No, but that's Roubaix to the core.
Yeah.
And I guess that's why I'm grumpy about the coverage is that we want to see every second of it. We want to see it all play out. But
Yeah.
Alyssa Longo-Borghini kind of knocked them all over, the chasing bunch. But
I
with
have a
50K
nickname.
to go, there was more than 4 minutes.
Yeah.
What were they thinking?
What were they doing?
Like,
Yeah.
Ali so deserved this win.
Yeah, congratulations to her. I have a nickname for ELB.
Oh, tell me.
The Skittler.
Oh, the Skittler.
It's like a Batman
It
villain.
was.
Yeah.
She was the first to go down.
Yeah.
And people literally flew over the top. Did that change the end result? Yes.
Yeah.
But that's why you get out ahead. It's like and I'm, I've mentioned this before, Joel. I'm not of the climbing variety. I'm of the sprinting variety.
Yep.
Thanks to the girth of my quadriceps. And how I would often climb on a day where I knew that it wasn't too long to get dropped, I had a chance,
Okay.
is you start at the front and then 30 people might pass you, but that you're still at the back of the bunch by the time you hit the top. So that kind of theory, a lot of sprinters kind of use strategy to make sure that they can get up the climbs.
Okay.
It's a similar thing in Roubaix if you think about it. Like if you don't think, which a lot of them aren't going to be able to hold the wheel of Lotte Kopecky or Longo-Borghini when push comes to shove with 20K to go. So you get out in front and you make them chase. And that is the whole point. And if the leaders lack team strategy or are a little bit arrogant or just underestimate the cobbles and, how treacherous it
The
can be out
many
there.
variables on offer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Too bad, so sad.
I like it. It's a real all or nothing kind of thing. And the
Yes.
sad part about the all or nothing is that we don't, as you say, get to see the all or nothing. I just want to ask you quickly about the whole coverage thing because this baffles me. I love my sport and US Masters was on last week. If I had to turn the TV on, it's like we're on the 18th in the 72nd green here. He's putting for the win. I was like, who's putting for the win? How are they putting for the win?
Can you imagine turning on the World Cup football final
100%. Yeah.
after halfway through the first half?
Very, very. Look,
Or halfway.
If I ever do that, it's my own fault. It's my own
It's
fault. I'm running
insane.
late or something's happened or I'll just watch this one last bit of this other show. It's not the broadcast. The broadcast is there. I wonder how do sponsors feel? How do you feel
Well,
about
I mean,
that?
their big sponsor, it's Paris-Roubaix avec Zwift.
Yep.
Femme avec Zwift. And Zwift are this massive sponsor and their head of women's markets, Kate Verino, was in the velodrome at the finish and as a North American, she knows Ali Jackson quite well. That was beautiful, like a really beautiful full circle moment for Zwift as a sponsor.
Yep.
But I think they're going to be getting frustrated
I think so too.
because they are putting their absolute weight behind this event, trying to build it and grow it.
Yeah.
And, it's kind of field of dreams.
Friends of the wheelhouse.
If you build it, they will come.
They will come.
They will come. So
you say Field of Dreams, I was going to say Wayne's World too.
Oh.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And as I say, Friends of the Wheelhouse, we might have to ask the question at one point. I don't know, maybe it's a bit cheeky, but I think it's a valid one
Kate,
to ask.
But I think that that's my only criticism.
Yeah.
Otherwise, actually, I would like it if they started a little earlier in the day so that we could get it in a better time
okay.
zone.
That's just for our own health and our own sleep patterns.
Yes.
And look, that is a common thing that you bring up. I get it.
Yes. Well, because the men's
is
the full length of the race. So you actually get to sit down at a reasonable hour in Australia and start watching.
Yeah.
And then you're in for the whole time.
This has to go hand in hand with the growth that we're seeing of the women's side of the sport. And we've celebrated a lot about different Grand Tours and all that kind of thing that are getting the spotlight they deserve. But if that's not accompanied by coverage, what's the point when it comes to global recognition and that growth?
Here. Well, and you know who we didn't get to see much of was Josie Talbot, the Aussie that was in the break.
Yeah.
But she wasn't in the break for that much longer than when the coverage started. But amazing ride for an Aussie to be in that, decisive move at Paris-Roubaix.
Spectacular.
Go, Josie, go.
I'd love to have a ride over the cobbles. I just all the myth of the legend of the cobbles.
Well,
you can just see it. It's like, how sore are your wrists after you just do that?
Very, but generally, if you've got a bit of junk in the trunk, then you get over them a little bit better.
Okay.
So that was my secret. That's why I liked cobbles.
There's a great T-shirt.
Yeah.
A bit of junk in the trunk. Now let's look at the men's race. So 37 not finishing the race. I've got my line here because we're revealing our rundowns. Mine's Matthew the Great, Jasper the Pretty Bloody Good, and Wout the Unfortunate. So we've got to mention your guy Wout. A little bit of bad luck, a flat, a pre-attack puncture, so really no chance. And I love what he said about it. He's like, I did everything I could do to show what I can do. It's like, yeah, sure.
I don't think anybody's been under the microscope quite as much as he has this season. When he's won, they've said he's good, but has he peaked too early? And then he didn't peak in Flanders, and they said, oh, look, he's done. He's never going to win these classics. What's wrong with Jumbo? I think he, in Paris-Roubaix had a sensational race. I do have a criticism, though.
Okay.
And that's the helmet. So Jumbo have different designed helmets depending on the races, and he always has a Red Bull helmet on. And this year, I don't know what the design was. I really need an up close, but from a little bit of a distance, and bearing in mind that our cycling coverage, we're not so up close on their faces, it looks like a brain.
Okay, so
it's a brain design on the helmet, and I got a bit distracted by that.
I see what you're saying.
To be honest.
I'd love to know what you think if you're a listener or viewer of the program. Are you in for audacious helmets? Are you a funky, flamboyant helmet type?
I don't know. Tiffany Cromwell designs all the helmets for Valtteri Bottas.
Yeah.
In his F1 driving. That's cool. They've all got great purpose. So I'm sure, given that they all change, there's a purpose behind this brain design. But
it's
alas,
also
I don't know what it is.
It's also a little bit creepy because it's like
it's very creepy.
There's only a thin layer of helmet.
Anyway,
doesn't matter. I'm sorry. Storm in a Wouty teacup. Confirming, I can actually confirm hot off the press right now on the Wheelhouse podcast because we have eyes and ears everywhere. It is in fact a brain.
It is.
Yeah, Merckx is on the ground.
To encourage people to wear helmets to protect their brain.
It's that is exactly it. To encourage people to wear helmets to protect their brain.
Okay, great message.
You don't like the message?
No, I love the message.
Yeah.
I don't like the helmet though.
You don't like the visual?
No, but in saying that, some of the most effective advertising campaigns are quite confronting, and they forced you to consider it. We're now discussing it because I really thought that if I got an up-close shot, it might be something floral and beautiful, and I was like, is there something wrong with my brain that I'm seeing a brain? But I guess
if you're
not.
a writer, is it like, is this a little bit of an omen that I'm
care.
wearing a brain hat?
Honestly, I don't think they would even
Wouldn't bother?
a cent into thinking about it.
Okay, a flat for Wout. I have another question about Wout just quickly. So MVDP has been strutting his stuff this year. yes, you've had a puncture. Wow, that's very unfortunate. But MVDP's, like, I know they're mates, but when does it become a bit of a hoodoo for Wout? Is it already?
I don't think they're mates. I think they have a professional respect, but
Right.
they've both kind of said that they're not.
We're not as tight as we might have.
No,
once
look,
appeared.
I don't think that they're hanging out at the pub together.
Okay.
I don't think they're training together and catching up. I think there's a ginormous amount of professional respect. But, what can you say about Van der Poel except that he's sensational and he won and well done? I mean, I think if Wout hadn't gotten the flat, it would have been a more exciting finish.
Yeah.
But, really, like anything that's been said about Van der Poel and how impressive he is almost has already been said, you know. But I think that it's telling that Jumbo had such a crappy day mechanically. Because Merksy and I talked about this last week when you were down with a spicy cough, Joel, in this very studio, that when it comes to Roubaix, it's only 50% heart and lungs.
Yeah.
The rest is equipment, what line you're taking, and skills across the cobble. Because if you have a bad line and you hit a cobble the wrong way, you'll get a flat.
You're done.
More likely to fall or get a flat tire. So there's definitely some operator error.
Okay.
But Christophe Laporte got a number of flats and a crash. Wout with his flats. I wonder if in them trying to gain a few advantages and trying different equipment and tyre technology in the lead-in, whether perhaps they didn't quite nail their setup.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Actually, Paul Wout was a little bit misquoted on this.
I love this.
In a French newspaper.
Could I reveal your note?
Please, yes.
A storm in a Wouty teacup.
Yes.
Do tell.
Yeah, well, so he was quoted in a French newspaper as saying, like, my legs were good, the equipment wasn't. And it goes on in the article to clarify that a little bit. And it's, he's not criticising it. He's just saying, like, I felt really good, but, the flats were obviously a big problem. But when translated into English, it comes across as quite harsh. And then there was the proliferation of all these English articles saying essentially, Wout's a bit of a twat.
Oh.
And I don't think that's... I think you've got to be careful with translation.
Oh, absolutely.
In that regard.
Absolutely.
He has quite a lot of honour in the way he rides.
Yeah.
I think.
Criticising the equipment is perilous. Is perilous for your crew and everything. You see it in Formula One all the time. So yes, I'm amazing, but my car sucks.
Yeah, but if it's true, like come on now.
Yeah.
People buy bikes and wheels and tyres based on what happens at these
what
events.
They see.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of spill down. There's a lot of big ramifications basically.
Yeah. So get your gear right.
I had my first
Yes.
puncture. I should say week
Did you?
before last. I was 8 kilometres away from home on the trusty Copper, which you've seen, the mountain bike, and a very slow. And finally, it just couldn't go on anymore. I was 8 kilometres away from home.
And
Wifey wasn't home.
Oh,
So
what'd you do?
that was it.
You just
I
rode
walked
home?
my bike back.
Oh, you
No, I
walked?
walked.
8
I didn't want
kilometres?
to ride on the frame because
All right.
as you said, junk in the trunk and whatnot. I don't want to ruin the bike.
Ruin the wheel. Well, it looks like we need to have a puncture repair workshop.
We very much
in
do,
here
and
at
that
the
makes me
bunker.
recall our chat with Dr. Lauren Pearson actually about the importance of knowing how to take care of your bike for women and for men. So anyway, I want to talk about the finishers. Now, those that did get there, one of the guys that did get there happened to be the youngest rider in 86 years to do so. A friend of the wheelhouse, even though he doesn't know it, is of course Josh Tarling. Now, he finished, he pushed it out, he got there, but he was 4 minutes post time cut, which basically means that history will show no record of that rather valiant effort.
Oh, that makes me sad. We love Josh Tarling. His father Michael, as we call him,
Father Michael,
and Mother Dawn. They're very fun on social media and very vocal in supporting him.
Yeah.
And they still call him, and he still calls himself on his social media Joshy. Like,
Love that.
so he sounds like
Joshy boy.
He could be 10.
Yeah.
Joshy. Anyway, Joshy had a number of flats, a fall. In fact, he had a big fall with his teammate Luke Rowe. They just lost their footing, but lost their front tyre going into a cobbled section. And he essentially spent the last 120k on his own fighting through these cobbled sections.
Yeah.
Unreal. What determination and
Great
grit.
effort. Yeah.
He missed the time cut by 4 minutes. But why on earth is there even a bloody time cut at Paris-Roubaix? To even make the finish, to get to the finish intact is a massive effort in itself.
So you think if you finish, if you get through that race, and as we've been talking about, it's a difficult one to get through, that your result should stand wherever it is, however long it takes you.
I think so. Look, there's some practicalities around it. You know, you can't have somebody out there in the dark. You can't have them so far behind that it invites people to be riding for absolutely no purpose. But I think the time cut is way too tight considering that somebody can push on their own. The velodrome's still full of a massive crowd. Everybody's loving it. Yeah. But then he's not on the results sheet.
And then he doesn't get mentioned.
I don't like it. I think we should be very proud of him.
What about a time? So there's a time cut. What about a time of day cut? So you're talking about darkness and that sort of thing. What if it's more like, look, guys, love what you're doing, but it is going to get a little bit...
Well, because the problem is the time cut is linked to a percentage of the race time.
Yeah.
And when we're seeing the fastest editions of everything ever, that's narrowing that time cut. So, I don't know. I reckon Joshy deserves a result. He'll be back.
Boy. Okay.
Joshy boy.
That's worth a very deep in the Wheelhouse bunker.
Yes.
Now, thank you for coming along for the Ride on the Wheelhouse podcast. We saw some emotion. We were speaking about Ali Jackson and her euphoria. We saw some tears. We saw some real tears as well at Paris-Roubaix in the men's. What was the matter?
That was John Degenkolb from DSM. He was in the break with the top contenders who went on to win. That got split apart a bit. But he got wedged between an Alpecin sandwich. And I'll also note that for whatever reason at Roubaix it was Alpecin Elegant. I don't know why for the day they had a different sponsor on the jersey, but Alpecin Elegant. In a not-so-elegant move from Van der Poel and Philipsen, he became the meat in the sandwich, went down like a sack of potatoes. Yeah. Didn't hurt himself so much that he couldn't get back up, but hurt himself enough that it was a pivotal moment in the race and the race was over for him. He won there back in 2015. Fair to say he's had a bit of a roller coaster career since then. I think this was a moment for him where he thought, oh my gosh, I can do this again.
Yeah, here we go.
This is my moment. And to have that kind of scuppered and the rug pulled out from under him in an Alpecin sandwich, I think that was pretty tough. To their credit, the Elegant Boys, literally a sponsor name, went and said sorry.
Oh wow!
When Johnny D was on the floor, very emotional and very upset at the end, they went over and apologised. But I don't know.
Sorry about the sandwich. Johnny.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how that apology would go down if it was me, to be honest. Like, you'd on one hand be pleased that they recognise that they did that, but they can't take it back.
So you're sort of there like, please get out of my face, or I will cleat you one.
Thanks, but go away.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I like the food metaphors: sack of potatoes, Alpecin sandwich, all of that. High emotion. Let's stay on tears on the Wheelhouse podcast because there's also some tears. This is a drama that I struggle with when you're looking at any kind of professional elite level sport. As with any kind of professional environment, if you're a professional, you deserve to be paid for what you're doing. So I want to talk about Zaf and just this little cheeky little tidbit of not paying your rider. No biggie. Is a biggie. Now
is a biggie.
Is a big biggie. Now what is going on here? So Audrey Caudron-Ragout leaves Zaf to join Human Powered Health, and it's all become a bit much. She's in tears on the start line as well. And she's like, I don't know what to do. I got to pay the bills.
She has had a crappy year. And I don't just mean 2023, I mean the last year. She had a stroke at the end of the last season.
My goodness.
And to her credit, did not give up the fight to get back on the bike. And that's pretty incredible given the challenges she was facing. She then got caught up in the B&B hotels team default, which was a bummer. She found a home over at ZAF Pro Racing.
Yeah.
They haven't paid her since day dot. And not only have they not paid her, they haven't reimbursed her for costs. She's had to pay her own travel costs to races, flights, etc. And they haven't even paid her back for that. So it's cost her money. So she had enough and she walked away. A brave thing to do, because the UCI regulations say that she can't change teams until the 1st of June.
Yeah.
And so there was potential that she would just be left without a team until then. She was quickly linked to Human Powered Health, and I'm pleased to say that for once the UCI got it right.
Yep.
Sorry, UCI. And they let her do an immediate transfer. They've now let the whole team release if they want to. Leave.
Good of them. Thank you, UCI, from all of us here in the bunker. But I want to just ask, why are they letting this team? Why are they letting this happen? Like, where's the intervention on the payment? I mean,
technically, because they're a continental team, there aren't the same bank guarantees around rider salaries and wages and that sort of stuff.
So is this in your contract that you sign when you join the team?
Well, normally you sign your contract.
Yeah.
But if you are in a World Tour team, and continental for the men, the team must put in and continental for the women to a degree, but they put in a bank guarantee to the UCI so that if they default on rider payments, the riders can then access that bank guarantee to get paid. But it's a little bit of a grey area, especially in the women, where you're getting a lot of the second-tier teams riding these World Tour races.
Yeah.
So the riders are accepting less money, less kind of base salary, but they're also accepting lower conditions because they get access to these big races.
Understand,
right?
Yeah.
And the women's continental don't have the same money guarantees as the men's continental do. So it's a different risk for the men. There's different tiers. But for the men, if you're racing Paris-Roubaix, you're getting paid decently and the UCI guarantees that. It's not the same for the women. But this one's a bit of a shocker because you've got an Aussie in there as well, Dani Di Francesco. Now, for her, she made the top 5 in the Zwift Academy finals last year, declined to go to the finals camp in Mallorca to get a contract with Canyon SRAM because ZAF had guaranteed her a contract and all these rides in big races on the starting roster.
Right.
So if she got a contract with Canyon SRAM, she may not get to ride these big races because it's a big roster. But ZAF promised her she'd get the rides and the money and the contract. So she's taken a big bet on doing that, and she's now finding herself in a position where they're not being paid. I don't know what the answer is, though, because if the UCI just stops them racing, all of these women are now, up the creek without a paddle.
Up the creek, indeed. What had happened in the men's?
Yeah. In the men's, they would pull the team, but the difference is that it wouldn't be riders missing out on World Tour races because there's so many more levels and tiers in the men's racing.
Right.
But it's what we saw with Chloe Hosking. She was in the B&B hotels. She found herself without a team, and then she had no option to find a new team. These girls, these riders, they don't have a lot of options. It's a bit of a shocker. I don't know the answer, but I do know that it's the vulnerable athletes that find themselves in trouble.
Look, it's good. Look, again, good of the UCI for allowing those few clauses to move aside. And, you can get out early, but there's got to be some sanction. There's got to be some sort of reprimand involved for these teams
I think for women's continental teams, if they want to be eligible for the wildcard spots at World Tour races, they need to provide a bank guarantee.
Yeah.
And then the riders don't have such a hard choice.
Yeah.
Between getting paid versus getting the opportunity.
I wish I could assemble a sporting all-star team just by here's a contract and not having to pay them.
Oh, I know. What a shocker, right?
I'd have LeBron James, Sam Kerr, Lionel Messi. I don't know what sport we're playing. I would just get everyone. I don't even care. I'd even give Wout a contract.
Yeah, give Wout a crack.
Julian Alaphillipe. We'll talk about him later. Basically, playing chicken with your career, though, isn't it? It really is. Speaking of chickens on the Wheelhouse podcast...
thank you, Mercy.
Oh, we love you, Mercy.
I was about to attempt to make that sound, so I am grateful.
You and I are a little bit clucky about this one because we love talking about weird trophies on this podcast. And this one is, The proverbial golden goose, but it's not, in fact, a goose. It's a chicken, and it's not made of gold. It's made of, I believe, chocolate.
Chocolate, yes. It is. It is. The Ronde de Mouscron. Now, it's only been around for a couple of years. It's a pretty new race in Belgium.
Thanks for pronouncing that.
And Martina Fidanza from Ceratizet Women, she won the race. Fantastic race for them.
Hat tip.
On the podium, she got this giant chicken.
Sure
rooster. I mean, anyway, it's gold, it's fancy, it looks amazing, but she is looking at it like, what the heck is this?
What am I going to do with this?
And the team actually put it on. The only reason we know about this is because the team put it on social media and said, wow, this is a special one.
We're so grateful.
And they preempted it before they'd even, like the social media manager was taking a photo and was like, oh dear. Then when Martina got off the podium, they took another photo of it with the champagne and they were like, oh my God, you guys, it's chocolate.
It's melting.
But until they got it off the podium, nobody even knew what it was. Like, was it a bronze statue of a chicken?
Look, the photo looks bronze. It's sort of, okay, sure. That might be a nice little ornament.
It's delicious.
Yeah.
What do you do? I would personally.
I think it's a rooster.
I have a few questions. Is it in fact a rooster?
I think it might be a rooster.
I reckon there could be a fundamental issue with this prize. I'm just saying. She's been roasted. She really has. Let's be honest.
I would snap the feathers off and attack it like that.
Where does that rank in our favourite trophies? Because mine's still hands down the Trident.
Oh yes. Well, you know, I have been known to say that I am a fan of the big sausages.
Yeah.
But I do love chocolate.
Okay.
All right.
Oh God.
Yeah. Goodness me. I'm not going to ask a follow-up question there.
No noises, please, Merksy.
We've spoken about sausages. We've spoken about chickens. We've spoken about tridents. We've spoken about sex toys. And I think we need to move on. Let's talk about beer, because beer is one thing we can all agree on.
There you go.
And what I love about this... Oh, actually, just quickly, Paris-Roubaix. I know it. I've known about it for a while, but... What about that trophy? It's epic.
Oh, the cobble. That's epic.
Love the cobble.
And second and third get mini cobbles.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Shall we call them mobbles?
If you fall on hard times and you're like, I'm going to go get this melted down, and oh wait, I can't. It's a cobble.
I know.
But anyway, that's okay. Amstel Gold. So I like this because first things first, we talk about equal pay a lot. Winners get equal amounts of Amstel Gold. So shout out to the beer guys for that. That's good.
But hilariously, like the photos from last year with Michael Kwiatkowski won in the fellas. And Marta Cavalli won in the women's. And I'm laughing because they do get equal-sized beers, but they look significantly bigger on Marta Cavalli holding her. Yeah. What do we even call it? Like, it's not a pint, it's not a stein, it's like a bucket?
A tankard? I don't even know.
A tankard, that's
There's
a good
something
word.
like that.
I don't know. I love that, though. A theme here from the cobble, which is known to be very heavy, and you see it on the podium. There's some arm wobble getting it above their head. This beer, tankard, let's go with that, or maybe a giant growler, because when you put the cider, it's called a growler, isn't it?
Okay, I don't know.
There you go.
A what?
Sorry. Sorry, can we just pause it up for a second? What's a growler?
A growler is a giant, bottle thing of cider or beer.
Merksy, can you confirm or deny that a growler is in fact a beer vessel?
I don't think it's a growler. I've not heard that, but I'll look it up.
Look it up.
Merksy's like, I've heard the term growler, but not in this context.
When I went to Bilpin, oh my God. When I went to Bilpin, which is in the Blue Mountains in New South Wales, they have a beautiful cider, so it's an orchard. And I went to their store. Merksy followed closely behind. There's a story in that where I made him ride in the -2 conditions to the cider joint
and
while
love
I drove the warm car. Anyway, we bought a growler of cider. I just don't know.
Okay, so Merksy's had experience with a growler.
Yeah, I just don't know if he knew what it was called.
You know what I love about Amstel Gold? You know what I really love about this race?
What?
If you lose the race, you're pissed. If you win the race, you're
pissed.
Yeah, I really like that about that. It's nice symmetry there. Now, you've got some history here. A podium in 2002, just quietly.
I was the first Australian to ever be on the podium at the Amstel Gold Race, men or women.
Did you get a growler?
How's
Did
that?
you get a growler for that?
I
or-
can confirm there was no growler for me.
growler.
But the race was started off, to promote the beer. So it has got a long history. But yes, for the Amstel Brewery in 1996 for the women.
Okay.
I have an update.
There you go. Oh, all right.
I think we've got a live update on the Wheelhouse podcast.
A growler, a 32 or 64 ounce airtight beer vessel made of glass that functions like a small keg.
There you go.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
you,
you.
Merxie, and thank you, Kate, once again for your razor-sharp accuracy of all things beer
Well,
and cycling.
although this isn't airtight, so that is not a growler.
Okay.
Didn't think so.
It is.
No, that's okay.
Anyway,
you know what? Can I just borrow a little line from our dear friends at SBS here? Because I love this. I
Please.
love this. Amstel Gold seeks out the Netherlands' biggest climbs to get the riders in the mood for the hilly Belgian races to come.
Ooh.
To get them in the mood. Let's punish ourselves to fire ourselves, to feel happy about more punishment down the track.
Well, Amstel Gold's an interesting one because essentially they go over the same roads, backwards, frontwards, every direction to get the distance in.
Yep.
So it's a long race, but it's not that they go, like the furthest point of the course from each other is quite close. So if you're a fan, it's really cool. You can walk between all of these wonderful spots, and if you stand anywhere, chances are they'll come past you a number of times.
Cool.
And it's just a great crowd, short climbs. So we are segueing kind of into the Ardennes Classics.
Yep.
And from the Flemish Cobbled Classics. And this is an in-between where we have some of these short, steep, pinchy climbs.
Mm-hmm.
They're not the really long, harder ones that really tear the peloton apart just yet. But it is a nice in-between. And I misspoke before as well. Phil Anderson was on the podium in 1983 at the Amstel Gold Race. He won it.
I'm
So
glad
I
that you
apologise.
clarified that because know I could quickly go to Wikipedia and I'd be like,
You could.
told a
No, I got third in 2002. And the Aussie women,
Yeah.
we haven't won it yet. Liv Gollan was second in 2003 and Spratty was third in 2018. So
Okay.
waiting for the women and for the men, Simon Gerrans was third 3 times.
Okay.
Michael Matthews was third.
So teasing the podium.
Simon Clark was second. So
Yeah.
we've been there and thereabouts.
What a growler. What a growler of a race. Some big finishes too. 2021, your mate Wout, my mate Feathers in a photo
Yes.
finish. We love talking about photo finishes on this show, and that was one for the ages. Usually we're talking about Caleb Ewan when we talk about a photo finish, but not when it comes to Feathers, Pidcock, and
No.
Wheels Up
I
Wout.
reckon after that one, everybody very quickly upskilled on the technology used for photo finishes because it was the first one where we were like, hold the phone, how do you even decide a winner? But topped, possibly, it's like the Amstel Gold Race is now becoming known not just for beer but for photo finishes.
Yeah.
Topped by last year where Michael Kwiatkowski beat Benoit Cosnefroy, except when they crossed the line, they announced Cosnefroy as the winner ahead of Kwiatkowski, only to check the photo finish camera a gajillion times. I feel like maybe they paper, scissors, rocked it, and then they reversed it and said Kwiatkowski won.
What's the trophy?
Beer.
It is beer.
Beer,
Of course, it's a growler.
It's the growler.
Okay, I'm sorry. That is actually the trophy.
The open growler.
Oh,
yeah.
I thought that was like, here you go, have a drink.
No,
we'll go
that's
get your
it.
trophy.
No,
Okay.
they get normal pints.
Sorry,
to
we're all
drink
out of
on the
chocolate
podium.
roosters.
I know.
Here's 10 litres of beer.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, there you go.
Now, Julian Alaphillipe, Juju, the man, the myth. I've still got a paper here in the bunker from Wollongong 22 with Juju on the...
Alaphillipe.
And I feel like that's the last time we've seen him looking happy. I really do.
I think he's a bit of a broken man. Well, I mean, we've got to preempt this part by saying that in moving from... I'm gesticulating a lot today. My hands are going in like an ocean
Have you been
movement.
on the growlers before you came in?
We are going from the western front of Belgium
Yes.
and France
Yes.
over towards the Ardennes
Yep.
region, in the Wallon region of
Okay.
Belgium. And the Ardennes covers, it's like a mountain region essentially, covers parts of Belgium, Luxembourg, France.
Yep.
And the region is a very important historically because it's the collision of Germany, of France, of Luxembourg, of Belgium, and you can imagine the historical significance in the wars.
Great conflict, yes.
But it's also this incredible region. It's so beautiful because it's got all these castles, fortresses, and everything from this rich history that makes it so beautiful to watch and beautiful to race through, and also very densely forested. But a lot of the roads that were built through the forest historically, like it's kind of dating back to 7th century we're talking here, the buildings. A lot of the roads were built through the farm roads, through the dense forest to build strongholds inside the forest for battle.
To build burrs.
And a burr.
I just read that the other day.
Really?
I feel
there you
so
go.
happy that I was able to contribute
Education
that.
lesson.
Yeah, a burr.
A burr. Well, and so a lot of these roads are still narrow. And they go up climbs and rolling through the hills where you wouldn't normally build a road.
Okay.
But they built them back there for defence reasons and stronghold reasons, and they still race on
and
them.
now
They're
like,
so
you know
cool.
what?
Yeah.
It's a sad past, but thank you for
It is.
creating some excellent racing.
Yeah, and
Right.
so Alaphillipe announcing that he won't be racing these, when we go from the cobbles over to these beautiful historical regions of the Ardennes, we change rider style too. So Matthew and Wout get to have a little bit of rest now.
Yeah.
And then we move over to your Kwiatkowskis, to your Remcos.
Here we go.
Pidcocks,
Yes.
definitely. Podgy will come back.
Yep.
Traditionally, Alaphillipe as well. The more dynamic, like the slightly lighter framed riders who have a lot of panache and a lot of sprint and ability to them, but they're not, I mean, other than Podgy who wins everything. Traditionally
Terminator,
not the rollers, as you would call them.
Okay, yes.
So that's the type of rider. So for Alaphillipe, I've fully jumped the gun there, but you were saying Alaphillipe.
It's my fault. Any time I see Alaphillipe in the news during the week, I'm like, okay, let's get him in.
Lou
Doesn't
Lou.
matter. Does not even matter. That's why we talk about leg tattoos of him. It doesn't matter. He's in.
Well,
we need
he's
an
out.
Alaphillipe jar.
That's the problem. He's out.
Good point. He's out. He's out. Wout's out. Okay.
Yes. So he's injured.
What's the Mur de Huy?
Oh, the Mur de Huy.
And why is it highlighted in my rundown?
It is highlighted. Well, so that's in Flèche Wallonne. So we've got Amstel Gold Race coming up. It's on the Sunday.
Yep.
On the Wednesday is Flèche Wallonne, and then on the following Sunday is Liège, Bastogne, Liège.
Okay.
So they're the Ardennes Classics, the three of them. Flèche Wallonne on the Wednesday, they finish up a hill called the Mur de Huy. It's 1.3K. It averages 9.6%.
Oh.
There are some points up there that to keep riding forward is a challenge. You have to do a little bit of weaving.
Sure.
And it's above a town called Huy.
Yeah.
And it's a natural hill, but they built a big fortress on the top as a stronghold to look out over the region.
As was the style of the time.
But
Yeah.
it means that they've been racing up it from the very beginning because this is a very historic part of the region.
It's a proper hill.
Yeah,
we're not talking
beautiful.
about like an ancient earthwork that's been built on top
No,
of the hill.
no. We're talking like it's a natural hill.
Right,
But
right.
because it overlooks Huy,
Yep.
they built a big fortress over it and built a road up it where normally it's not the kind of... You wouldn't normally build a road up there, is the point, because it's so steep and it's got hairpins to even get up it. But because they wanted to build a fortress up the top, they built a road.
I'd love
So they race over it.
I'd love to go up a place
there
like
you go.
that, beautiful view, have a couple of
It is-
growlers with
no.
your mates and just really enjoy yourself.
I raced it a number of times.
Yeah.
I didn't do too badly up there, actually, because it's a power climb. Moment to giggle.
Sorry to giggle, but
'cause
Merxie's just
Merxie
provided a graphic.
in the studio has just put up a picture of a growler with our faces on it. We have our own growler.
Special edition
Team
Wheelhouse Growler.
Oh.
Available as soon as we get our liquor license.
Moving on from that
Love you,
one.
Merxie.
Oh, my God.
We're talking about... No, sorry. You
no.
said I race well. You race well everywhere, but please do
No,
tell.
well, so the Flèche Wallonne translates in English to the Wallonne arrow, and
Yeah.
Wallonne is the region.
Yeah.
And the arrow is it's such a sharp ascent. But I raced well up it because I had a lot of power. So not for long distances, and I couldn't go up long climbs because my power to weight wasn't that good, you know, reference to junk in the trunk and all that.
I get it,
But because it's 1.3K, it was short enough that I did pretty well. Now, not well enough to be on the podium because I ran out of gas before the top of it, but I didn't find climbing it to be the absolute torture because I had a little bit of power under my belt.
Okay.
But for the less dynamic riders, or even just the pure climbers, it can be absolute hell. For sprinters, pure sprinters, absolute hell. It is a wall. Like Muir is wall.
Yeah.
So very steep, very race defining. Cadell Evans is the only Aussie to ever win it.
Okay.
So Anoni Wood was on the podium a number of times there. She was very, very good up there. Anna van der Breggen has won 7 times up there. But Alaphillipe, where we started this meandering, winding historical adventure through the Ardennes region, he has been top 10 times.
Wow.
Been on the podium. He's won it a number of times. It's his thing.
That makes me even a tiny little bit sadder because I was already a touch sad about Lou Lou.
Well, Merksy has a theory. Merksy, do you want to tell us your Lou Lou theory?
I think he's done at the team.
Thinks he's done.
Wow. No, we're not talking about wow.
No.
Wow, Merksy, that's an extraordinary theory.
I agree with him. And
okay,
I'll tell
so
you
he's
why.
sidelining himself basically because he's like, you know what?
I think he's injured. But, I mean, he is injured.
Yeah.
And I think I did write the quote down somewhere that he was in, like, hell. It's still in misery is
Still
what they
in
said.
Misery. Wow.
At Paris-Roubaix. But Quick Step, Soudal Quick Step. Gosh, the naming, it's a killer that they change the names all the time. Soudal Quick Step have had a miserable classic season. And our bestie, Lefebvre, he's such a twat. The crap that comes out of his mouth after every race, he's like, talk about kick a dog when they're down.
Yeah.
Like, you know, he says the most impressive part about E3 Harelbaker for the team was the lunch that he had.
Okay.
You know, he just comes out after every race that they don't get a result and says...
Just smashes them.
Pretty much. Like, they're not... And he does it in such a personal way. It's not like, oh, you know, they're physically struggling. He pretty much just says, like, they're weak and they're useless, and it's so demeaning. Like, it's really triggering for me. I hear these quotes from him and I just think...
That's rubbish. It's
what
absolute
a rubbish human. And I think that it's when you're in a position with a team where everything's kind of going tits up, you can either rally together and get through it together and lift. Come on, how many wonderful football movies are there out there? Friday Night Lights. Where
do you remember the Titans?
Remember the Titans. Such a good movie. My old coach
Mighty
Gary
Ducks.
Sutton.
Quack.
Mighty Ducks.
Quack.
My coach Gary Sutton.
Yeah.
Everybody watched Remember the Titans. That was his big thing. Like, he'd make everybody watch it.
Yeah.
It was so good. I love it. But the point is that you can rally and you can get better, or you can self-destruct. And I think that his words on riders like Lou Lou, I think it is mentally very destructive to him. And I reckon Merksy's hit it on the head.
I like it a lot, Merksy. I think we've spoken a lot about passion and emotion today, and Ali Mitchell, of course, and John Degenkolb showing how much it means to them. They don't need to be kicked when they're down. If they have a disappointing result, they don't need to be reminded about it. Look, I get a coach saying that they could have been better today, but you do it in a way that is actually putting an arm around and actually being constructive about it.
You know, like, as they say, it's not a particularly nice term, but bear with me, a shit sandwich.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to publicly criticise you guys, which I'm not a huge fan of, by the way, keep it in the locker room, but if you're going to do it, you come up with something like, Alaphillipe is an absolute champion and we've seen that. Right now, he's not riding to his standard, and that's disappointing for him and the team, but he's a champion rider and a champion person, and we look forward, and we are supporting him and look forward to when he's back at his best, right?
I agree.
Because then you're valuing him as a human being.
100%.
Lefebvre does not do that. And I reckon the flow-on of this is massive. Alaphillipe, injured. He's downcast. I think Merckx's on the money. But the pressure this puts on Remco is enormous.
It's massive, isn't it?
Remco's now their big, great hope.
This is one to stay across as well, because
Remco's he's a kid.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, not only does he have the pressure to carry the team because they haven't been performing well, but he also knows that Lefebvre will absolutely hang him out to dry if he doesn't.
Well, you know what? Lefebvre, you reap what you sow. So who knows, in a few years, maybe he won't have either of them. And if Lulu's available, maybe he can join my unpaid dream team alongside Sam Kerr, LeBron, and all of those guys. We'll see. But look, let's speak of Julian Alaphillipe. We love him. He's having a crap season. Let's stay on the topic of crap seasons for just a second, because our mate, a genuine friend of the wheelhouse in Jay Vine, has had a little bit of trouble with injury, but he's determined to fight back, Kate Bates.
Yes.
Whether you believe it or not, I'm backing him to get back. What do you think about Jay Vine?
I heard it on the grapevine that he was on the comeback.
Yeah.
It's no secret I'm a very big fan of Jay Vine, but I think with taking away the bias that might emerge from that, his background, as we all know very well, is on the indoor trainer on his own, riding on his own. He's got his amazing wife Bree supporting him the whole time. Injuries happen. It's most often what defines your rehab from injury is not the injury itself. It's the way you get through the rehab. It's your ability to put the work in on the roads training. And there's a lot of riders who are racers, not trainers. So they need a bunch to train with, because if they're training on their own, they just don't push the limits like they do in a race. And then there's someone like Jay Vine. He's made his career because he's so capable of absolutely hanging himself out in a training session on a trainer on his own. And so the fact that he's like, I spent some time on the trainer, I spent some time on the road, I don't need a bunch.
I'm better alone.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
Good on him.
So he means it. That's genuine. And of anyone to say it, it's like, there's a bit of evidence to back that up.
No career is going to be without injury.
Yeah.
Physical and mental. I'll say that.
Yeah.
When you have the ability like Jay Vine does to just get on with it, and to do that in training, to have that ability to have a very small team, which is essentially he and his wife. Yeah. It's superpower.
That's fantastic.
Like, I think this won't be the only time he needs to pull out this strategy.
Yeah. So, you know what? Jay and Bree, straight away, both are in the unpaid dream team of mine.
Yeah.
I also wanted. When is he back? Do we know? Like, what's cracking?
In Australia?
No, well, back on track.
Racing.
Yeah.
Oh, well, he'll be back for the Giro.
It is Giro.
Yes.
It's confirmed, isn't it?
It is,
That's fantastic.
So good to see him in the Giro.
I love that. I'll get him to sign the contract there. Now, let's do a quick injury update, because there's always carnage, but gee whiz, some big names. Dylan Van Baal, Roubaix went down, hand and scapula gone.
Yeah, well, and that was after winning last year, so that was a bit of a
massive
Barry Crocker, that one.
A little bit of a Barry Crocker. For those who don't know, that's Australian rhyming slang for shocker.
Yes.
There you go. Peter Sagan, now Merckx's probably going to need to have a moment here, but
he had a moment when we were watching it,
Yeah, concussion, bit of a head knock. Alaphillipe, as we've already mentioned. Sandra Alonso, 6 weeks with the collarbone.
Ouch. Well, and the other one is that Sana can't ride for a couple of weeks after a concussion. Yes, Sana can't is her name.
Injury.
And, can't spelled C-A-N-T. And Sana, which I believe translates to cream.
Okay.
So all around a sensational name.
What a name.
Yes.
What a name.
She is a very, very established cyclocross rider.
Yeah.
She is a real star on the scene. She's been around for a long time, so it's a shame to see her out for a couple of weeks with a concussion. But I'm also glad, and topic for another day to really dive into, but I'm glad to see that they're getting more time out for concussions.
Yeah.
And often concussions on the bike aren't 2 weeks. We've seen a lot of riders with what seem like a mild head injury turn into a whole season. And we should support that. But it's good that the teams are automatically sidelining them for a number of weeks to see how it plays out.
Okay,
So-
I like that, and I like
Yeah.
that there are a lot of sports that are getting more serious about head injuries
Agreed.
because it's serious business. Now, headline writer's dream as well, because when Sana Khan comes back and wins, the headline is Sana can, and that's just fantastic. Now, let's talk about shots fired to finish up this episode.
Pew, pew, pew.
Episode 42, by the way. I should have mentioned that at the top, but whatever. We're just
Whatevs.
rolling them out now. Ellen Van Dijk. Now, we love Ellen.
We do. One of the nicest humans you'll come across.
She's under fire. She's EVD under fire is my note. She's basically come off, and it's the Dutch versus the Dane here on Cecily. We love Cecily Uttrup-Ludwig as well. Apparently Ellen doesn't though.
Well, look.
Woo. Woo.
No, she said on a Dutch podcast that nobody in the peloton liked Cecily.
No one likes Cecily, she says.
I mean, that was essentially the guts of it. She backed that up by saying she doesn't pull her weight in the bunch.
Right.
She hides from the wind. She won't pull through in breakaways. And
so she goes missing
she's
in the big
known
moments.
for that.
Yeah, okay.
And not particularly well liked.
She says she's an annoying rider. She's always yelling, always whining. I was good at that too. But she's different. You know you are. You said you are. So what am I?
Oh, God.
Wow.
I'm laughing because I do describe Ellen as one of the nicest people, genuinely, like named my child after her, kind of nice, right?
Yeah, yes.
But she's also ferocious. And one of the reasons I took naming rights is because of her ferocity and
of her
determination.
lion heart,
but she's
lioness
kind.
heart.
And
Yep.
I think this is a little bit of not a mistranslation, but she has come out and apologised after the Danes
I have a question here.
went
So she has
bananas.
Denmark basically didn't take it well.
No.
The country of Denmark,
The
not
whole
amused.
country.
And then the backtrack. I understand the anger. So, unskilled, which I believe is Danish for soz. And that's great.
Sozzy.
Lovely little touch doing it in language and all of that. But if Denmark wasn't filthy about it, are we seeing the backtrack?
Oh, no. She was saying unskilled for the offence it caused.
Not
for
unskilled
saying
about...
it. No, because she then doubled down, and I back her on this. She doubled down and said she knows that I don't like her as a cyclist.
Okay,
She
well, I've
knows
missed...
the
oh, dear
disdain
me.
that Ellen has. But she says as a cyclist, and I think that wraps it up. She's not saying Cecily's a crap person. She's saying I don't like her riding style.
Yeah, but how big a part of her life is being a cyclist?
Yeah, but I've got to look. I really like Cecily's personality interviews. Like they're some of the best, right? But I got incredibly frustrated, and I still do watching with what people I call wheel suckers.
Yeah.
So they won't come through and pull their turns. They don't pull their weight in brakes.
Yeah.
They're the sort of people who you get in a breakaway with and you realise they're there and you go, ugh, like
Oh, no.
they're just going to
Okay.
disrupt it. I'm going to have to do all the work. It doesn't seem fair or sporting. Is it within the rules? Of course, absolutely. Is it
Yeah.
maybe a good strategy? Maybe, absolutely. Does it make you liked? No.
No, well,
And there was a guy in the men's peloton some years back, Thomas Vukler, and they called him the Sniveler for the same reason, right? That's a nasty word, but for the same reason that he didn't pull his turn, pull his weight, people didn't want to get in breaks with him, but because he was so good and because she's so good, she's so often in these breaks.
yeah.
And it causes frustration, and I get that. So I wouldn't, if I was still racing, I can pretty confidently say I wouldn't like her as a rider either.
Look, fair enough. I just love this sort of apology where it's like, sorry if you were upset by what I said. It's a
Yeah, but is it really?
words.
Well, here's a question, because I think sometimes you're kinder than I am, Joel. I seem to be a bit harsh
what
when
would
I
give
look
you that
at these.
impression, Kate?
But she didn't say anything nasty about her. She said because of her style of riding, she isn't very well liked in the bunch.
Okay.
What's wrong with saying that? That's a genuine question to you.
Look, it's not the Lefebvre level of, they had a bad day, therefore they're terrible
Well,
human beings.
It would be different if she said she's a mole
Yeah.
or like she's a pain in the like it. I think that she was trying to say, and look, could be wrong, but that she's not liked as a rider because of her style of racing. It wasn't necessarily a personal thing. It was just what it is.
I rarely disagree with you. And I'm not necessarily here either, but I just think, as I said before, I think Cecily is defined by her status as a cyclist. So if you come out and say, as a cyclist, she's a shit human being, I think you're essentially saying she's a shit human being.
Yeah,
that's my thinking on it.
And I respect your view. I respect your view.
Yeah.
I think that...
Look, unskilled that I'm on a different page here, but I just think, again, I don't know, like things come out.
I would love, in the comments, please, people, on social media or on our YouTube, I would love to hear your view on this one.
I'm sure I will get absolutely smashed for thinking
No,
that it's not. But,
I think I may, and that's fine if I am as well. I do think it's an interesting one and it's a point of debate because
it is.
When you're out there, you're not out there to make friends. And, you know, what's the line publicly to talk about that? Are you allowed to say, I don't like the kind of rider they are?
It's interesting, yeah.
Does that make you mean? Because I don't know. Or does it make you disrespectful? Again, I don't know. Does it depend the platform you're on, perhaps?
Yeah.
Maybe.
I think that's a really good point there because the thing with podcasts, and we know better than anyone that things can be said in podcasts.
Yes.
And I think you've seen it a lot. It's happened in other sports closer to home in Australia this year. Young footballers going on, criticising their coaches, doing it in a jovial manner, but it causes quite a bit of furor and all that. I just, like Cecily, whatever she's like in the bunch and all of that moving forward, it's like, is she a little bit like, are you a little bit sort of going into your shell when you're like, oh no, the perception of me is this? And what does that do to you?
No, she knows. You know in the bunch if you're not that well liked.
You know?
Yeah, as a rider, I don't mean as a person, I mean as a rider.
And my argument is separating the rider from the person when they are the rider that they are.
Yeah. Well, I really like Cecily as a person. I love her interviews. I love her authenticity. I love what she does for the sport. Do I like the types of riders who are characterised as wheel suckers?
No. Okay.
There's
fair
my
enough.
line.
All right. Well, look, please feel free to contribute on our social media because we love it when you do. It's the Wheelhouse Podcast coming to you live from the undisclosed bunker. A very big thanks to you for being on your own show, as always.
And to you, Joel, for steering this ship, and to Merksy for getting us a Wheelhouse Growler.
Yeah, should we go have a few growlers now?
Yum, yum.
Yum,
There
yum.
you go, Merksy. It's always such a pleasure, so much to get through, and I think we get through it in an interesting and an alternative way here on the Wheelhouse. So we're going to do it all again very soon for episode 43. Cannot wait. Like, share, subscribe, tell everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Ciao for now.